How do you think is the clarity of the exact thing that you talked about, right? That is the true picture, actually, right? How much clarity do you think founders or generally the companies, like let's not just target founders,
Yeah.
but companies
Yeah.
have with respect to having this kind of clarity?
So having this kind of clarity is slightly tough, right? Especially in an early stage where everything is about
Yeah,
survival, right? Even though you might have picked up funding or you're on bootstrapping, right? Everything is about survival, right? So to tell somebody that, okay, listen, a senior person on your team, or maybe even a junior person, or maybe a consultant is going to take some time and approach and basically figure out the audience and does
yeah,
an audience research. It sounds very enterprisey. Right? It
right,
sounds something like an enterprise would do, right? And it then becomes difficult for for the leadership team to understand why does this need to happen, because we know it sells,
yeah,
right? We believe it sells. We have done 10 sales, right? Now those
yeah,
10 sales could have happened due to a strong PMF, could have happened due to any reason, right?
yeah,
There is no discovery, there's no data around that why it happened, right? It
yeah,
just happened. Those 10 sales happened because of founder relationships, because of something. Now,
agreed.
is it truly a PMF? Is it not a PMF? Nobody wants to answer that question. It's a slightly uncomfortable question answer. So we have to also realize, as a marketer, you're going and telling, I'm going to see whether you should exist or not,
Yeah,
right? And when you tell that kind of thing, you know, people tend to basically, slightly get, wary of you. They slightly tend to,
mhm,
look at you as, why are you trying to do this? We know what this happens. This is not
right,
needed, etc., etc. So I think there's a
right,
little bit of, I think a few founders, and I've seen, and this is, in my experience, I've seen founders who have gone through this journey. They understand this much better. They are, these slightly marinated serial entrepreneurs. They understand the need for this. In fact, even before building the product, they do it themselves. So
yeah,
I met a couple of founders who actually showed me audience product research documents, where they basically took the
nice.
product to the audience. They basically went through everything. They asked, would they use it? They showed me, they gave me the entire notes, right? So that makes marketing's jobs easier then, right? Then
Of
you
course.
understand, okay, listen, do I need to do a PMF here? What do I need to do? How do I capture this? How do I engage these folks? Right? Versus, where you have to do this. But yeah, I think overall we still are pretty young in understanding that this is important.
Yeah.
Pretty young at being that mature as an
Have you been
ecosystem.
able to tackle this? Like, have you been able to tackle these kind of situations? Like, this is,
Yeah,
this is like if I'm sure you'll agree, this is probably the most important aspect for any marketer, right? Be it an external consultant, an agency, or
yeah.
an in-house, in the leadership role, right? Reporting to the founder. I think it's a very, very something that everybody deals with and something that everybody wants to hear more about. Like, how do you tackle this?
So I
Because
think
at yeah, at some point, just to complete, right, founders are also under some pressure because they, as you mentioned, right, it's about survival, and there is an investor board, and you've seen that picture also a little bit, right? For I think 2-3 years, you were a part of the Surge, Sequoia, Peak 15. So many name changes already happened in 3 years. So, so yeah. So can you elaborate on that? Can you also talk about probably the what is the founder thinking at this moment?
sure. So like I said, right, founders have multiple fires burning in their head, right? One is
Yeah,
obviously that, I mean, and most of the founders are from tech product engineering perspective,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
So now when you're looking at this, they have tech issues burning, they have product issues burning, because
Hmm.
you know an MVP of a product is, I mean, the product is always in a work in progress. So they already
Absolutely.
have a lot of conversations going around product. They already had a lot of conversations going around product in the engineering part of it. They have a
Hmm.
lot of fires. So one of the things that we have to admire in these founders, right, is the fact that they have gone out of the comfort zone of tech product engineering and gone
Hmm.
on to even sell the product, right? It's
Hmm.
quite
Hmm.
difficult to do that. And they have
Right.
fires burning over there where they tend to solve. They also have fires burning on customer support, right?
Right.
And they have fires burning on marketing, right?
Hmm.
Now, typically a large funding helps them, solve or delegate some of these fires to experienced folks, right?
Hmm.
But even then, the fires keep coming back to the founders, right? So
Yeah.
founders are always running from one fire to another. They always are caught up, thinking about the longer term vision of the product versus fighting the
Yeah.
fires of today versus for survival, right? So in
Agreed.
their head, there is always a dichotomy, right? They are thinking long
Yeah.
term as well as short term, right?
Hmm.
Now to tell somebody who's in this kind of a game, right? that listen, let's take a pause, let's understand this. You've got to tread it very carefully, right? You have to tell them the benefits of this. You have to tell them, okay,
Mm.
listen, what are the trade-offs of doing this and not doing this, right? So typically, if they tell me, okay, listen, we need to make a strategy plan, and we know this is the audience problem, right? So I tell them, if you're 100% sure about this problem, fair enough, I'll make a plan. But do you want me to confirm if this is the problem or not? Because if we don't, and tomorrow we figure out this is not the problem, then 8 months of effort, 8 months of working with me, they would have gone down the drain, because we would be building our entire house of the entire strategy, the entire marketing
Right.
strategy based on some assumptions we did not test, right?
Yeah.
So I try to give analogies of how foundation of a house. Try to give different analogies, like, okay, you're building a car. This is the engine, right? This is literally what is driving your audience research, is driving your entire marketing, and
That's right.
how frequently you need to do it, what's the capacity, and how does it keep happening on an automatic basis? Not necessarily that every quarter I need to go and talk to 40 people, right? There are sales calls
Right.
happening, everything happening now. Uh, it takes time for founders to break through the founders. It's important, and it, like you said, right, it is difficult, right?
Mm.
But I think marketers should not short charge themselves, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of marketers come under the pressure because the founders are like, no, we need to do something today, let's keep this running, let's start with something, right? And when that happens, marketers tend to short charge and say, okay, listen, I told you what you need to do, you probably did not listen, so it's okay, I'll do what you are telling me to do. And I think marketers
Right.
should fight back. And that's the role of marketers, right? You are able to see a larger picture. You are able to see, okay, what's happening. So you have a duty to the founder to tell them, okay, this is the way to go about it. And you should be steadfast in your decision. And
Right.
uh, typically what happens is, when a senior leadership person joins a startup, they're introduced to the board, which is obviously comprises of investors, angels, etc., right? You talk to them, you basically also make a presentation, you also make a 60-90 day plan. Before
Mhm.
joining in itself, a leadership, a leadership role, or as a consultant fractional, right? I ensure that, this is covered in my 30, 60, 90 day plan, that this is what I'm going to do before I touch anything, right? I'm not
Right.
going to come magically create some ads or magically create something that is going to make something go great.